Okay, so we'll see programs on arrays now. Okay, let's start with the first program. So the first question is, so you write down the question. Write a program in Java to find the sum of elements of an array. I'll repeat the question. Write a program in Java to find the sum of elements of an array. Okay, now let's see how we can do this. So we have been asked to find the sum of elements of an array. Now, the first thing that we need to do is, okay, I'll assume that you'll be able to do the initial portions. You'll be able to do the initializations. You'll be able to import your files and all. I'll directly start with the class. So the name of the class is, okay, what I'll do is I'll write the entire program. No problem. Okay, let me write the entire thing. So I'll say import java.io.star, and then I'll start writing my class. So let's call the class array. And then I'll have a main method. So I'll say public static void main, and inside this, so what have I been asked to do? I've been asked to find the sum of elements of an array. So if I have to find the sum of elements of an array, the first thing that I need to know is what is the size of the array, right? So the size has to come from the user. So first thing that I'll do is I'll ask the user to enter the size of the array. So let's ask the user. So for the size, I need a variable. So let's declare a variable called size. So there's a variable called size. What I would suggest is you copy along with me. You pause the video from time to time and you copy along with me. Then we can proceed faster because I'll be erasing the board. You can see I don't have that much amount of space to fit the entire program. So I'll be erasing the board from time to time. What you do is you pause the video and you keep on copying. Okay, so now I'll have to ask the user to enter the size. So let me ask the user. So I need to display a statement. So I would say system.out.print enter the size, right? Enter the size. So seeing the statement, what will the user do? So the user will enter the size and I have to accept that size in a variable, right? So I would say size equal to, okay, I need to use my scanner. Okay, I need to use my scanner. I just missed that. So what I'll do is let me define a scanner object and let me import. I don't need the IO class. I don't need the IO package. I don't need the IO class. I need the scanner. I need the scanner class. So I'll say import java.util.scanner. Yeah, that would be good. Okay, now I need to define a scanner object. So let me define a scanner object. So I would say scanner scan equal to new scanner system.in. New scanner system.in, right? So this will create a scanner object which will help me to accept user input. And I needed a variable called size, so that will be there as well. So I would say int size. Okay, now I can accept the input from the user. So I would say, so since it is an integer input, I'll say scan dot next int, right? Size equal to scan dot next int. So this will enable me to accept the input and store it in size variable. Now what I need to do is I need to declare an array of this size. I need to declare an array of this size. So I'll say int arr. So how do you declare an array? If you remember from the previous lessons, you would declare an array using the new keyword. So int arr equal to new int. Why int? Because it is an integer array. So new int size. So this will create an array called arr of size. What will be the size of the array? The same as the value of the size variable. Okay, now once you have created the array, the next thing that you need to do is accept inputs from the user. So how do you accept inputs from the user? You would have to run a loop, and this loop will start from 0, because array indexing starts from 0, and it will go up to size -1. So I will say less than size, right? And I will do ++i. Now every time this loop runs, I will accept an input from the user. So I'll ask the user, right? So instead of writing SOP like system.out.print, I'm writing SOP. Okay, I'm writing it in short. So SOP, I'll ask the user, enter, let's say, enter an element. Enter an element. I can write this in a better form. I'll show you how. This can be written in a better form. I can say enter, and I can substitute the value of I, and then I can say index. So what will it be? Enter, let's say initially the value of I is 0. So enter 0 index element. Okay, so that would look better. So enter 0 index element, then I will become 1. So you'll say enter 1 index element, or you can swap it. I think instead of saying 1 index, I think saying index 1 is better. So you can say enter, sorry about that, enter index I. So this will be enter index 0 element, enter index 1 element, and so on. Okay. So seeing this, the user will enter an element, and you have to store that element. Where will you store the element? You will store the element inside your array. At which position? At ith position. So you will say ARR of I is equal to, okay, sorry about that, is equal to scan dot next int, right? So now what will happen initially, let me do a dry run of this. So initially the value of I is 0. Let's say the size that the user has entered is 3. So 0 is less than 3, so you come inside. So you will say enter index 0 element. So seeing this, the user will enter a value. Let's say the user enters 5. Now you have an array. The name of this array is ARR. The size of this array is 3. So it has 3 indices, 0, 1, and 2. So you will say enter index 0 element. And where will you store this? At ARR of I. What is the value of I? The value of I is 0. So you will store this at ARR of 0. So ARR of 0 means this position. Let's say the user enters 5 and the element is stored here. Next, you will go back up. The value of I will become 1. And now you print this statement, enter index I, index 1 element. So seeing the statement, the user will enter the element. So ARR of I, ARR of 1, that means here you'll accept the input. So let's say the user enters 7. So this will be stored here. Then again you go back up. The value of I becomes 2. 2 is less than size. The statement is printed, enter index 2 element. Now let's say the user enters 12, and that 12 will be stored where? It will be stored at the ith position of ARR. So what is the current value of I? The current value of I is 2. So the ith position means this position. So it will be stored at ARR of 2. I is 2. So ARR of 2. ARR of 2 will get the value of 12. And then the value of I will become 3. 3 is no longer less than 3. So you will come out of the loop. So this is how you would accept input in an array. So this is how you accept an input into an array. So I hope you have copied this down. What I'll do is I'll now move on to the next part of the program. Okay. Now moving on. So I have the elements of the array with me. Now the next thing I have to do is I have to find the sum of elements of an array. So in order to find the sum, I need a variable which will store my sum. Let's say that variable is sum, and I'm going to initialize it to 0. Now what will I do? Now I will access one element after the other. I'll accept every element of the array and I'll sum it up. I'll accept every element of the array and I'll sum it up. So in order to access every element, I need to run a loop. Now, so the array indexing starts from 0, so I is equal to 0. Now, one point here. In the previous loop that we saw, we used the variable size. That's fine. Now, there is an alternative way of accessing the size of the array. One is you accept the size from the user and then you use that size to check the limit, to check where the array ends. There is an attribute. There is another way of doing this by using the attribute of an array called length. Every array, remember, will have an attribute called length. Every array will have an attribute. What is an attribute? An attribute is a feature. So every array will have an attribute called length. Now using this attribute, you can also access the size of the array. Okay, so I'll be using length now. You can also use size. It's the same thing. So I'll say I is less than. So how do you access the length attribute? You write the name of the array. In this program, the name of the array was ARR. So I say ARR dot length. So this will give me the size of the array. And then there's a plus plus I. Okay. So this is how you would access the length attribute of an array. You can do this for all arrays, irrespective of the type. It can be an integer array, a character array. You would be doing the same thing. So now that you have the length with you, now what will you do? You will find the sum. So how do you find the sum? You say sum is equal to the current value of sum plus the current array element. So how do you access the current array element? You write the name of the array and then within box bracket, you give the index value. So this will help you to find the sum of the elements. I'll do a dry run, don't worry. And after I found the sum, what I'll do is I'll simply print out the value. So I'll say sum of elements is equal to plus sum. Okay, that's it. That's the end of my program. So this will bring an end to the main method and this will bring an end to the class. Now let's do a dry run. Suppose the array that I have is, the name of the array is ARR and its size is 3. So it has 3 indices, 0, 1 and 2. Let's say the values are 3, 5 and 12. Now let's do a dry run of this. So what is the value of sum? The value of sum is initially 0. Now next we have, what is the value of I? Now the loop will start, right? After this step begins. So the loop will start. Initially the value of I is 0. What is ARR.length? ARR.length, see, ARR.length will give me the size of the array. What is the size of the array? Number of elements present in the array gives me the size of the array. Number of elements present in the array gives me the size of the array. How many elements are present here? 3 elements. So the value of the length attribute is also 3. Now I'll check. Is I less than ARR.length? Yes, the value of I is 0 and it is less than 3. So what is ARR.length? I'll repeat myself. ARR.length is the size of the array. And what is the size of the array? The number of elements present in the array gives me the size of the array. So obviously this condition is satisfied. So you come inside the loop. Now, what you do is inside sum, you store the current value of sum plus the ith array element. So what is the current value of sum? 0 plus ARR of I. What is the value of I? 0. So what is ARR of 0? ARR of 0 is 3. So 0 plus 3 is 3. You store it in sum itself. So sum becomes, from 0, it becomes 3. Okay, I hope this step is clear. Now next, we go back up here. Plus plus I. So I becomes 1. Now you check. Is I less than ARR.length? Yes. I is less than 3. So you come inside and what do? Sum equal to sum plus ARR of I. So what is the current value of sum? 3 plus ARR of I means ARR of 1. So what is ARR of 1? 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. So sum becomes 8. Sum becomes 8. Next again you go back up. I becomes 2. Is this condition satisfied? Yes it is, because 2 is less than 3. You come inside. Sum equal to sum plus ARR of I. ARR of I is ARR of 2. ARR of 2 is 12. What is the value of sum? 8. 8 plus 12 is 20. Now you stored the value of 20 inside sum itself. So sum becomes 20. Again you go back up. I becomes 3. I becomes 3. Now this condition is no longer satisfied. So you come out of the loop and you print sum of elements is equal to 20. Now find the sum. 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 plus 12 is 20, which is my sum. Okay, so this is how you would find the sum of elements of an array. So what I would suggest is you copy this down and I can move on to the next question. So I hope you have copied it down. Now write down the next question. Write down the next program. The next program is write a program in Java to find the product of elements of an array. Write a program in Java to find the product of elements of an array. Okay, now to find the product of elements of an array, the initial part that you saw where you had to accept inputs from the user, that is exactly the same. That is exactly the same. So I'll not be writing that part. I'll be directly going to the portion where you have to find the product. So I'll be making changes here and you can see the results for yourself. So what I'll do is I have to find the product. So I need a variable called product. I hope you understood my point. The initial part that you saw for this program where I had started from the class, I had imported the util method, I had created a scanner object, I had accepted elements from the user, and before accepting the elements, I accepted the size. All that remains the same. So you have to write down that part. First, you write down the entire portion of accepting elements from the user. After you're done writing that portion, then you come to this part. Okay. So what I'll do is I need a variable called product. I need a variable called product and I'll initialize it to 1. I'll initialize it to 1. And what I'll do is it will be the same thing. I have to cover every element of the array. I have to find the product of every element. So I'll be covering the entire array. Now in order to cover the entire array, I have to run a loop like this. And now instead of sum, what I'll do is I'll find the product. So I'll say product is equal to product is equal to product into the ith element. And here what I'll get is I'll get product of elements is equal to the variable product. So I have made the changes for my I want to proceed fast. So I've made the changes here itself. I've not written the entire program. But what I would suggest is you write the entire program in your copy. Please write the entire program in your copy. Okay, now let's do a dry run. Let's say the array is this 3, 5, 12. And now I'll have a sum variable, right? I'll have a product variable. Instead of a sum variable, I'll have a product variable, which is initially how much? Initially it is 1. Now the loop starts. Initially the value of I is 0. Now you check, is I less than arr.length? Yes, arr.length, which is 3. That happens to be greater than I. So this condition is satisfied. So you come inside. So product into arr of I. What is arr of I? ARR of I means, what is the value of I? 0. ARR of 0. ARR of 0 means this element, the element at 0th index. What is its value? Its value is 3. So you take that element, you multiply it with product. So 3 into 1 is 3 and you store it in product itself. And next you go back up. I becomes 1. Now you check. Is this condition satisfied? The condition is satisfied. So you come inside. Product into ARR of I. So what is ARR of I? ARR of 1, that is 5. So that into product. What is the value of product? 3. So 5 into 3 is 15. Store it in product itself. So now the value of my product is 15. Again you go back up. I becomes 2. So I go back up here 2. Now again I check the condition. The condition is satisfied because arr.length is 3, I is 2 and 2 is less than 3. You come inside. Product equal to product into ARR of I. What is ARR of I? ARR of 2. So product into ARR of 2. So 15 into 12 will give you 180. So product becomes 180. Now after product becomes 180, I becomes, you go back to the updation part. So I becomes 3. Now again you come in. Now you will not be able to come inside because the condition is no longer satisfied. See, I is no longer less than arr.length. So you come out of the loop and you print product of elements is equal to 180. Now you multiply these 3 elements, 3 into 5, 15, 15 into 12 will give you 180. Okay, so these are the first 2 programs that we have covered. We'll take up more in the upcoming videos. I hope this helps. Thank you. And you can please leave your doubts in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next one.